here is normal.
So, Girl Meets World ran for 3 seasons until 2017, and it is the sequel series to Boy Meets World. Boy Meets World was more like an adult sitcom, so I was surprised when I heard that Girl Meets World was coming on Disney Channel. I remember watching all the episodes and thinking it was really impressive for being a Disney show. Like, they touch on a lot more darker topics in teenage issues that you would not find in like Life with Derek or Hannah Montana, and maybe that's the reason they've had to dive into more complicated territory. Rowan Blanchard plays Maya, and she is the main character, with a lot of the original cast coming back as adults that raise the kids, kind of like Wizards Beyond Waverly Place does. Each episode circles around a life lesson and the relationship between Maya, her friend, and her parents. It is the definition of like a family sitcom. It's interesting because the original series definitely dealt with a lot more complicated issues. And I'm not sure whether it was because of Disney Channel or just the time it was released in. Girl Meets World has such a bigger backlash than Boy Meets World, but I've definitely seen a lot more complicated topics handled a lot worse in Boy Meets World. So it's weird that we see a lot more about Girl Meets World. I guess this is all prior to me seeing this episode. I've heard a lot of like small complaints and issues with this show, a lot that have to do with the fact that it's a revival of an old series. It takes a lot for me to care about a controversy that goes on in a TV show. But this definitely caught my attention. What's up, everybody? It's Johnny 2000, jumping back on some of these banned episode trains because I've been seeing a lot of crazy stuff in old teen sitcoms that I have never come across, so I started seeking out those individually. For example, it's been told to me through the iCarly video, through the Hannah Montana video, that there's this one Girl Meets World controversy that is just worst among them all. So I was just like, okay, I have to figure this out. I did a little bit of my research and I found out, I remember watching Girl Meets World a while back and thinking it was really funny, but this time I was going to dive into this one specific episode. And I was shocked when I remembered this. Let's get the Sabrina Carpenter thing out of the way. Like, yeah, she's in this show. This was before she was famous. Let's get over it. So let's dive into this. Season 2 of Girl Meets World is Girl Meets Farkle, and I saw this suggested to me a lot in the comments of my other band videos, and I was super excited to dive into this. So everybody's in class when Farkle keeps calling out the right answers. I guess a guidance counselor comes in to talk to Farkas during the class. I don't know why she's not keeping this a secret. And she reveals that Farkle's not on a traditional path. He doesn't want to do a normal thing. And this is the first sign of a problem with this kid. I know this is the son of a character that's already been in this series, but it's really cute to see the connection. The teacher gives a whole speech about being under a label and why you shouldn't have one, which is kind of complicated because a mental diagnosis is definitely a label. And I guess you shouldn't be preaching about that at the same time.
Everyone in this class has the potential to impact our world. So just be yourself. It's the only label that matters.
Then the guidance counselor needs to talk to Farkle again. He tells all his friends that he's being tested for autism. And it's treated really dramatically, like they're sitting on the windowsill. They have to talk about it.
Farkle, we're interested in everything you're interested in.
Belgium 1831.
Stop doing that. He's gonna stop doing that.
Farkle and the girl he sees in this are very Big Bang Theory. Like, it feels like they're literally parroting it.
You observed me in my natural habitat, so I asked Mr. Matthews if I could observe you in Mediocreville.
It's funny to assume that scientists always would like each other. I don't know why that's a connection for a relationship usually. They have a really sweet moment, and this is what Girl Meets World does really well, is their emotional moments balanced to their humorous moments. Farkle has a speech to the class about how he likes that nobody knows how to categorize him, and that's a good lesson. I like that. I forgot this Ben Savage guy is so pretentious with all his speeches. Like, it feels like every episode is just him having a TED Talk and everybody being around him. The girl is worried that since Farkle doesn't have Asperger's, he wouldn't want to be with her, which is even more offensive, and the girls talk about it as if it's all solved. When Farkle says, like, oh, they want to see if I have autism, Maya abruptly is like, no, you don't. And just everybody's so much more defensive about this condition, meaning that, like, they just want to believe that they can push down this identity so it doesn't have to affect their friendships, which is actually a really serious issue in younger communities that don't understand what it's like to be different from each other, especially with, like, a condition like this. But the way they portray it being negative is where the issue is standing. Riley has an issue with it. Maya has an issue with it. It's almost like people are trying to talk him out of it. I mean, this is a fictional show, so of course it does make sense for how the younger minds work. Like, of course, they're not immediately understanding what a condition like this might be.
Alright, this website lists symptoms of Asperger's. The first one they mention is social awkwardness.
Check. You don't do anything awkward.
Well, that's just something you do, and you're gonna stop doing that. He's gonna stop doing that.
And it's weird because apparently this episode aired 2 years after the term Asperger's syndrome was eliminated from the American Psychiatric Association's Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. So clinicians no longer actually use it as a separate diagnosis from autism. Riley even says, like, Farkle, when I said you were a little Farkly, what I meant was you behave like a perfectly normal Farkle. And it's like, oh no, guys, that's too much. Farkle's dad explains that it was important to his son that his friends were a part of it because he's Farkle. And even ending with, and that's how you are, no matter what anyone says. It's like, that's when it's like being controversial. The original person that reposted this is what blew the episode up beyond repair, and viewers agreed at the time that it was like needlessly dramatic, and it went viral with like 237,000 likes. And since then, we've been finding a lot online about other autistic people seeing this episode and having them feel terrible about it because it made them feel like there is something to be ashamed of, like it's a big issue and that their friends will be struggling to deal with it. And that's actually kind of sad. Like, imagine you watched a show that made it seem normal that all your friends made fun of you for something and you were like the victim of it.
Because he's Farkle. That's who you are, no matter what anybody says.
Apparently in September 2015, TikTok actually had this clip resurfacing from Disney Channel. And it's so sad to see all the people feel bad about this episode and like it was out of touch, and you know, like we were living in a really complicated time when it came to social standards and how it migrated from TV to real life and real life back. In the end, they tell him he doesn't have autism, and that is where it gets really complicated because it's like, oh, of course they had to put it in some way they would describe as a happy ending, and the fact that this was a bullet that was dodged shouldn't be a positive thing. Like, there's nothing wrong with having autism, and it's just a different way the brain is set up. So the fact that Farkle didn't have it and that it would be an issue if he did is always the problematic stuff. For this specific episode, I kind of lean both ways. Seeing Drake and Josh's band episodes being more about licensing made me think it was a little bit more on the ridiculous end to ban episodes. Like, why completely hide parts of history if they were unapologetically there and meant something to some people during the time they were made? But as I'm seeing this episode, I feel like it portrays an uglier side of our culture that almost wasn't even relevant. Like, I don't mind that they banned this episode because it was almost not a correct reflection of what people actually thought. Not only was it incorrect information, but it just felt like I'm on the team, like, don't ban it, don't hide it, but make a lesson out of it. There's some really good character moments, and the heart behind the episode makes a lot of sense. It's just a matter of why did they irresponsibly direct it. If anything, it's not the script's problem, it is the director's fault for making the tone so negative around having autism, but I digress. Have you guys heard of this one before? Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching another one of these banned Disney Channel episodes. I find it so crazy that they're so different from banning things than Nickelodeon is, but I always love finding out new information about this stuff. Thank you guys so much for watching, and this is Johnny 2000. Until next time.